In the early morning of Wednesday, June 13th, 2013, two things happened. At 6 a.m., a man was put to his death. His name was Wiley Jefferson, and he was a convicted serial killer, charged with killing an entire family, Joan and Ken Kennedy, and their 3 children, ages 10, 7, and 3 years old. When asked if he had any last words, he looked directly into the eyes of Joan Kennedy's mother, Rachel Quinlan, and said, "Your daughter died begging for help. She begged me not to kill her kids. She cried out for you. She was weak. You're weak." Joan Kennedy's mom jumped up and pounded on the glass separating her from Wiley Jefferson and damned him to hell. She damned him to pay for what he'd done to her daughter and her grandchildren. She spit at him, but it hit the glass and slid down. The guards were on either side of her, as were her son and other daughter, and they pulled her back from the window. They took her from that room, and as they did, she yelled, "Damn you, Wiley Jefferson! You will pay in hell!" "We'll see about that," muttered Jefferson, as he was restrained by the officers and strapped to the bed. Wiley Jefferson took great comfort in the fact that his last act raised such rage in that woman. At 6:01, Jefferson was declared dead. On the other side of town, Ryan Kaplan's alarm woke him up at 6:15. He'd set it early today because he was starting a new job with the Postal Service, and he didn't want to be late. Unfortunately, he'd woken up with a splitting headache. He put on his robe, walked into the bathroom to brush his teeth and shower. When he got out, he swallowed a few over-the-counter pain meds with his orange juice, grabbed a couple of pieces of toast, and walked out the door. He'd already gone through training, so this was his first real day on the job. He was given his route and started on his way. The medicine hadn't done a thing for his headache. In fact, it was getting worse every hour. He just needed to get through this shift so he could head home and go right to bed. At the third to the last house, he was standing on the porch ringing the bell because he had a package that needed signed for when a woman answered the door. She was standing behind her screen door, but from what he could see, she looked exhausted. Her hair was a mess, her makeup running down her face, her eyes swollen, and he wished that whatever was happening with her, that he hadn't interrupted. When she opened the screen door to sign the slip, he felt a sharp pain run down his head and along his spine. He held onto the rail of her porch because he thought he might lose consciousness. The woman reached out and put her hand on his arm, and when she did, she immediately jerked it back. Her hands were shaking, and she stared at him in what Ryan could only describe as fear. She took the package and slammed the door. Ryan felt a rise of anger towards her. Anger didn't even feel like the right word. He felt rage, and he wondered where that was coming from. He finished his route and went home to bed. At 6 a.m., his alarm went off, and when Ryan woke up, he had that sleepy feeling where you aren't quite sure where you are. It actually took him a couple of minutes to realize that he was home in his own bed. He spent the night having nightmares, and now his clothing, hair, and bed were soaked in his sweat. His head was feeling somewhat better, though, and as he took his shower, he hoped that if he took some medication, he could stave off the headache for the rest of the day. Ryan walked into his kitchen and started to make a cup of coffee. He made some eggs and he sat down. It was then that he realized he hadn't made coffee in months. He only had that machine because his last girlfriend insisted he get one for when she was over. He grabbed his usual orange juice from the fridge, took a swallow from the bottle, and got ready to leave. The day was going pretty smoothly until he got to the third house from the last. As he walked up to the door to place the mail in the box, he noticed an envelope from the local prison. It was addressed from an inmate. He thought that didn't really fit with the lady he'd seen answer the door yesterday. He was pretty sure that mild, almost invisible lady, wearing her hair in a messed-up mom bun, a turtleneck, slacks, and loafers, wasn't the type to be a prisoner pen pal. As he placed the mail in the box, she opened the door. She looked more put together today, but still seemed to have an underlying sadness about her. She opened the door, and Ryan took a step back. She asked him what his name was, and he told her. There was something about this woman that Ryan just didn't like, and he couldn't put his finger on it. She returned his look, and he could feel that she felt the same way about him. He didn't understand it. He'd always been a people person. He didn't have an unkind word to say about anyone, but this woman, she had something. Some deep anger. Also, that sadness. She took her mail from the box. For some unknown reason, Ryan stood there and watched her. She saw the envelope from the prison. It was light blue, like it had come from a box of stationery. Her hands began to tremble as she stared at it. She seemed afraid, thought Ryan, and somewhere deep inside of him, he felt a certain kind of pleasure from that. What is with me and this woman, he wondered. Why would I want to see her afraid? She returned to looking at his face and told him he was free to go. She shut the door, and Ryan was still on her porch, and he thought, bitch, I'm free to go? She's dismissing me? He bounded down the stairs and went to finish the last 3 homes. When he got home that night, he couldn't stop thinking about her. How angry that she had made him. How dare she dismiss him? She looked at him like she was better than him. Jerk her hand away from his arm like she was afraid to catch something. He went to the liquor store and bought a bottle of cheap whiskey and took it home. He rarely drank. Probably hadn't had a drink since his cousin's wedding 9 months ago. But he felt this strong urge to have one now. Then 1 turned into 2, and 2 turned into... He passed out. If Ryan had heard his alarm go off, he didn't know it. Maybe he'd turned it off. At 8 a.m., there was a loud knocking on Ryan's door. "Ryan! Ryan!" said a man's voice. "It's David!" Ryan's brother. He'd gotten Ryan the job with the Postal Service. "Ryan, are you in there? Are you okay?" Ryan was disoriented. He stumbled out of his room and saw the empty bottle of whiskey. Wait. Empty? The banging was loud. "Ryan! Ryan!" He could hear it pounding in his own head. He opened up the door and he saw the man standing there. David. My brother, David, thought Ryan. His head was spinning. He must still be drunk, he thought. "Hey," said Ryan. David's eyes were then huge. He stepped back into the hallway. His face was pale. "Ryan," said David. "What the hell?" And he trailed off. Mere moments later, 2 police officers came running up the stairs and told Ryan to freeze, or I'll shoot. Ryan dropped to his knees and put his hands behind his head, just as he was instructed to do. Ryan's brother was standing against the wall, in shock. "Ryan!" screamed David. "The blood! The blood!" Ryan didn't respond. He felt strange, like he was not in control of what was happening. David was asking the police, "What's he being arrested for?" They were reading Ryan his rights and told him that he was being arrested for attempted murder of Rachel Quinlan. "Do you understand these rights, Ryan Kaplan?" they asked. Inside Ryan's brain, he could see the woman who lived 3 doors down from the end of his route. She was screaming as a knife plunged into her body. Then Ryan opened his mouth, and instead of his voice came, "My name isn't Ryan. My name is Jefferson. Wiley Jefferson." What happens to a tormented and evil soul when it's let loose from its body? Do any of us really know? Is that energy, that life force, set free to find a new body?